Okay, cadets, moral of the story, don't be a Kermit, all right? So if I tell you you're being a Kermit when we're working on Google Meets, you better cut it out, all right? It means you're not being safe in some way, okay? So in the next few days, you will be receiving a kit. In order to be able to receive your kit that you pick up from Mrs. Seha in the Ike parking lot, you will have to sign a document that says that you will follow safety protocol at all times, and that's what this video is about. And then also that you will return all of the kit contents. If you do not return all of those kit contents, you will be charged, which means that your account will be charged the full worth of the kit. And when you sign, you will see the dollar amount. And if you are charged, you have to pay for that before we will issue your credits or your diploma. Okay?
SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants.
In your kit, you will receive one pair of safety goggles, just like these fancy ones, okay? Some of them are Ike colors, some of them are black and clear, and I have a few other different ones that are in each of the kits. So they're not all exactly the same, but you will have a fancy pair, just like this. Look at me, I'm looking pretty good. All right, so make sure that you always have these on. Eye protection is the most important thing when we are working in jewelry. And that's because we work with really tiny pieces of metal. And tiny pieces of metal can find their way into tiny little things like eyes. And they can burrow into the eye. They can cause all kinds of infections. They can cause loss of sight. And so you don't ever want to be working without your safety goggles at all times. And I know it's frustrating and I know it's uncomfortable. And sometimes it gets gross and sweaty under the nose piece. And sometimes they get fogged up and you can't see. But you just have to take them off, wipe them down, and put them back on for me, okay? It's imperative that you always wear your safety goggles, okay? So that's rule number 1. Okay, so here you are in my art studio. This is the space that I create. And so for me, I have a dedicated area that's set up to making art. I'm very fortunate for that. For the rest of you, you probably don't have a place that you can leave your tools safely out and all of your, hazardous materials, and not have siblings or cousins or parents or pets come along and poke around in your materials. So what you're going to have to do for me is every single time that you use any of your materials, I want you to pack them up at the end, put them back into your kit, and put them away in a drawer, a closet, somewhere where you know that your younger siblings, your pets, your cousins, anybody that could harm themselves by grabbing some jewelry pliers or jewelry cutters or wire, will not be able to harm themselves. So that's rule number 2. Always keep your items from your jewelry kit put away when you are not using them, okay? So these tools that are in your kit, they each have an intended purpose. So when we are looking at pliers or cutters, they have intended purposes. They don't get used for anything other than what I ask you to use them for, okay? So rule number 3 is you are not going to use your tools for anything other than their intended purpose. So that is rule number 3. You are only using your tools for their purpose, their intended purpose. So that means that if you use your cutters at home, they should only be used to cut wire. because that is what I have given you as the assignment. Boy, oh boy, Mrs. Skiles, you need a manicure. This is atrocious. Okay, so you need to be able to cut wire with your pliers, with your wire cutters, I mean. So only use your wire cutters to cut wire. Wire cutters should not be used to cut clothing. Wire cutters should not be used to cut fingernails. Wire cutters should not be used to cut any other type of metal in your home other than the wire that has been supplied to you by Mrs. Skiles, okay? So tools, unfortunately, the ones that I provide for you, they can rust, they can bend. They're not made out of material that isn't prone to things happening to them. So I do not want to get your tools back looking like this, okay? So that brings me to rule number 4. So you remember rule number 2 about putting everything away when you're not using it. Rule number 4 states that you need to make sure that when you put things away, they're in an appropriate place that is dry, and so there's no water, and that they're protected by being wrapped in something. So what happens here is that if tools are left in moisture, they will rust, and so you can see quite a bit of rust here. You can also see that at the top of this tool, this set of pliers, they were used inappropriately, and so there was, the metal has twisted, okay? And they no longer have that nice point like other pliers do, like these ones do, okay? So, I want you to keep your tools in an appropriate place that is dry, and they're also wrapped and ready to go for the next time that you use them, free from any sort of misuse, okay? So there's number 4. So, rule number 5. Rule number 5 is that if you have cleaned up all of your tools and supplies and put them away, I want you to go back to the space that you were working on and make sure that you have gotten rid of all choking hazards. You will be given small beads. You will also be cutting small pieces of wire. So if you have a piece of wire and you have cut tiny little pieces off, and sometimes when you cut with your wire snips, if you're not being smart and covering, and we will discuss this in class, but if you're not being smart and covering, that piece of wire, which I have in my hand, this tiny piece of wire, or smaller if you were cutting a smaller piece of wire, can end up flying through the room and wherever you're working, landing on the carpet, getting lost in the carpet, landing on a bed, getting lost in the bedding, somewhere under a piece of furniture. I want you to take all sort of precautions that you can to clean up your workspace after you've put away your supplies. So once you've put away your kit, go back to the workspace, and this is rule number 5. Always do a double check of cleaning your workspace. So that means any beads, any tiny pieces of wire, anything that was left behind needs to be cleaned up. Those aren't just choking hazards, but they can also be things that can cut as well, especially if they're tiny pieces of wire. Beads can also hurt to step on, and some of the beads can shatter when you step on them. I have been barefoot and stepped on some beads in my home, and it can hurt and it can cut, and nobody wants any of that in their life, right? So please make sure that you double check your workspace and clean up a second time. Okay, you guys, so that brings me back to the very last, what? Oh my God. Guys. I am not a Kermit. I am in charge of this class. I am really good at my job. And yes, you are right. Every once in a while, somebody is a Kermit. So if you catch me doing something I'm not supposed to be doing safety-wise, you let me know. The very last rule is, when in doubt, ask Mrs. Skiles. Use your common sense. Use the wire, use the tool, use the beads as it's intended. But if you're not sure, just ask me. So rule number 6 is, when in doubt, ask Mrs. Skiles. All right, you guys, pick up your kits on this Thursday from noon to 4 or on Friday from noon to 3. And if you can't make either of those times, you need to just let me know. We can either find another time for you to pick it up, or we can do a house drop-off. It'll just be a porch drop-off. We cannot knock on doors or interact with you at all, but we can just drop it off quickly on the porch if you absolutely need that option. Okay? So take care, be safe, ask questions, and let's have a whole lot of fun making a couple of pieces of jewelry over the next few weeks. Take care, you guys. Bye.